Hey, I'm looking for Eddie.
Do I know you?
Just tell me where he is. I have.
If you did, you know where to fuck out of here.
I'm not until you tell me where he is.
You just fucked yourself, buddy. Back off! If I ever see you here again, you're a dead man.
You're not going anywhere.
Fine by me. We can do this all day long, for all I care.
Open up, open up!
No.
But I'm passing through.
Paul is a mechanic whose daughter, Beth, goes to college in a different city. During a recent video call, Beth looked rough, though she blamed it on being burned out from her studies. The call ended abruptly when a man started yelling in the background, but not before they made plans to see each other the following week. The next day, Paul received a letter from the university at his shop. He tried to call Beth to talk about it, but a strange man answered the phone instead. As soon as Paul identified himself as her father, the man hung up on him. Paul started to get worried when Beth didn't answer his calls or return his messages about a letter from her school. He reached out to her landlord and found out she hadn't been seen for days and that her place looked deserted. Paul drove straight to her city to find her. When he got to her apartment and no one answered the door, he broke it down, only to find the unit was almost completely cleared out. Paul searched the place and found a photo of Beth and a friend in front of a bar. He headed straight there and started asking around. A man outside didn't recognize her, and the bartender inside wouldn't talk until Paul paid for a drink. After looking at the photo, she told him she hadn't seen the girls that night. Paul sat down to have a drink and figure out his next move when he suddenly spotted a familiar face in the crowd. Paul spotted the girl from the photo, Beth's friend Angela, and went over to talk to her. Even after Paul explained that he hadn't heard from his daughter in days, Angela was cold and accused him of snooping through Beth's stuff. She tried to walk away with her friends, but Paul desperately grabbed her hand to keep her there. Her friends immediately jumped in to defend her, and the situation turned into a heated standoff. The bar security kicked everyone out, but Paul managed to explain he was looking for his missing daughter. Angela agreed to talk to him privately while they grabbed a bite to eat. She explained that she and Beth weren't close anymore and that Beth had actually dropped out of school a while back. According to Angela, Beth had moved to New Orleans with her boyfriend Eddie, who was rumored to be a drug dealer. Paul was shocked but kept his cool, offering Angela $500 if she would help him find Eddie. Lured by the money, Angela agreed to help Paul scout out where Eddie lived. On the way, she asked why he hadn't gone to the police. Paul explained that he felt it would be a waste of time, since the police usually wait 48 hours to act and would probably just assume Beth was another runaway. When they stopped at a gas station a few hours later, Angela suggested that Paul should just let his daughter live her own life. Angela remarked that Paul seemed like a strict father, but he didn't respond. Once they reached New Orleans, she took him to the club where she and Beth had first met Eddie. Paul told her to wait in the car for a few minutes and head in after him so they wouldn't look like they were together. He planned to find a spot inside to keep an eye on things and asked Angela to give him a sign if she saw Eddie. Once inside the club, Angela got distracted, went to the bathroom to do drugs, and came back acting high and hyper on the dance floor. Paul noticed she was out of it but stayed focused on his search. He brushed off her attempts to flirt with him, but eventually agreed to follow her to another spot since it was the only place still open. As they walked out, they ran into some of Eddie's friends. Paul tried to ask them where Eddie was, but the group attacked him instead. After Paul fought off the group, he grabbed one of their phones to use as a lead. Back at the car, he had Angela use the stolen phone to text Eddie and set up a meeting. Angela was terrified after seeing the fight and wanted to go home, but Paul told her he'd take her somewhere safe instead. He ended up taking her to a motel so she could get some rest. In the motel room, Angela grilled Paul with questions about why he was avoiding the police and how he learned to fight like that, but he stayed quiet. After she fell asleep, Paul stayed up thinking about the car bombing that killed his family. Later, Angela woke up and noticed Paul's tattoos and athletic build as he stood by the mirror. Just as things were getting awkward between them, Eddie texted back and agreed to meet at a bar called Excite that night. When they got to the bar, Angela pointed out Eddie, and Paul paid her and told her she was free to go. As Paul walked in, a man named Stuart and a few others recognized him from years ago. Paul went up to Eddie and demanded to know where his daughter was, but Eddie just insulted her. Before things escalated, Stuart stepped in, cleared the room, and apologized for Eddie. Stuart then brought up their history, revealing that Paul used to be a professional hitman who specialized in taking out gang members. Stuart remembered a night when they fired dozens of shots at Paul and missed every single one, and he asked Paul why he hadn't killed him when he had the chance. Once Eddie realized who Paul really was, he cracked and admitted he didn't know where Beth was. He explained that they broke up because of her heroin habit, and that she was last seen with a big-time dealer named Tony the Pharmacist Martinez. Stuart gave Paul the address, and as Paul headed out to find Tony, he told Stuart the only reason he didn't kill him years ago was that he'd run out of bullets. When Paul got outside, he saw Angela waiting for him. Angela refused to leave, insisting she help find Beth, so Paul let her come along. As they hit the road, they were being tailed by some of Omar's men. At the same time, Omar was in the middle of dealing with a problematic subordinate when he got word about Paul's presence. As soon as he heard the description, Omar lost his temper, recognizing his old enemy. Omar had been holding a grudge against Paul for 20 years. Even though Mark told him to drop it, Omar wouldn't listen and ordered his men to get Paul no matter what. While Paul and Angela were driving, two gunmen ambushed them and opened fire. Paul fought back and took them both down. He interrogated one of the wounded guys and found out Omar was behind the hit, then finished them both off. Later, Mark told Omar that his men had been wiped out. When Omar heard that Paul was still in town looking for his daughter, he doubled down on finding him. Even though Mark was worried about how dangerous Paul was, Omar was obsessed with getting revenge, believing Paul had killed his wife and child years ago. As they drove, Paul finally came clean to Angela about his past. He admitted he wasn't just a mechanic, he used to be a mobster before the government recruited him as a hitman to take out crime bosses. 20 years ago, Paul was supposed to kill Omar with a car bomb, but Omar's wife and kid ended up taking the car instead. Paul tried to stop them, but he was too late, and they were both killed in the blast. Ridden with guilt, he quit the life and went into hiding. Paul told Angela that his only focus now was finding Beth before Omar got to her. He warned her that Omar's guys wouldn't stop coming for them, then finished working on a car and drove to see an old friend named Sam, who ran a hotel. Paul went to Sam's hotel and filled him in on everything. Sam knew who Tony was and gave Paul the details he needed. Even though Sam had been out of the game for a long time, he reluctantly agreed to watch over Angela. Once Paul was gone, Sam told Angela that Paul used to be a major player in the underworld known as the Prince. He warned her that sticking with Paul was dangerous, and she should get out while she could. Meanwhile, Paul headed off to see an old contact who used to run a black market gun shop. Paul went to his old weapon shop and found out the original owner had died, but the son, Frank, gave him back his old gear. Now heavily armed, Paul bluffed his way into Tony's house by acting like he had a tip for him. The guards took his guns, but once he was inside, he found Beth passed out from an overdose. He realized the whole thing was a setup to hand him over to Omar. Paul fought his way out, killed Tony and his men, and escaped with his daughter. Mark showed up at Tony's place and found everyone dead and Paul gone. Meanwhile, Paul headed back to Sam's hotel to patch himself up, But Mark tracked him down and told Omar where he was hiding.
Everybody know.
Omar immediately sent a hit squad, sparking a massive shootout at the hotel. Inside, Beth finally woke up with Angela, watching over her. Paul reassured his daughter that he still loved her and promised to get her home soon. He then told Angela it was time for her to leave so he could focus on getting Beth out of there. Mark and his crew surrounded the hotel and opened fire, leading to a massive shootout. In the middle of the gunfight, Omar's men kidnapped Beth, but Angela managed to pull up in a car and get Paul out while Sam stayed behind to handle things. Paul stopped at Frank's place to stock up on more weapons for the final showdown. While Beth was being held by Omar, he told her about his history with her father and how he blamed Paul for everything he'd lost. He also noticed that Beth was clearly going through drug withdrawals. Armed to the teeth, Paul drove straight to Omar's base to get her back. Paul stormed the building alone, taking out Omar's guards one by one until he found Omar holding Beth hostage. Paul tried to get him to let her go, but Mark jumped him, and the two got into a brutal fight. Even though he was beat up and tired, Paul managed to kill Mark. He then faced off with Omar as Omar went to pull the trigger.
Shut up.
Paul beat him to the draw and killed him. Afterward, a shaken Beth helped the badly injured Paul out to the car where Angela was waiting, and the three of them drove away.